invisible, unworthy, inadequate. These are the emotions I often felt as a Black woman on my journey to success. And there were many factors contributing to these feelings. But the greatest was my grandmother's shaping of me to mirror the woman she was, kind and likable. Now, my grandma was well known for her cooking. She knew how to mix ingredients to create the most memorable dishes. Mwah. And I was her little assistant. So I learned how to mix recipes just like her. But the most important one I learned wasn't for a dish. It was for survival. A recipe that has been passed down by Black women for generations. The ingredients are: give without boundaries, hide your true feelings, and never ask for help. My grandma relied on this recipe to endure the hardship she experienced after leaving Honduras in pursuit of the American dream. And as challenging as it was, she did her best to prepare me for a world where the odds often seem stacked against women of color. I leaned heavily on that recipe when I began struggling with deep feelings of unworthiness after getting pregnant at 13. And not because of the pregnancy itself, but because of the hurtful messages I received from my family and society labeling me a failure. I was angry, but I was also determined to prove them wrong. With Grandma's recipe, I was prepared to defy that narrative and tackle life head-on without their support. Following that recipe to a T, I earned not 1, but 3 degrees. I stepped into my career, and it took off. I went from associate to manager to director-level positions in reputable organizations. I thought, yes, finally, people are seeing my worth. On the outside, my life was picture perfect. But inside, those messages of being a failure continuously played. But instead of holding me back, they fueled my determination to prove my worth. So I turned the heat up on Grandma's recipe, going above and beyond to give without boundaries, hide my true feelings, and never, I mean never, ask for help. Until one day, it all came crashing down. I woke up in a dark room, drenched in sweat. My mouth was pasty, head throbbing, and the thought of getting up was as daunting as climbing a steep mountain. I was burnt out. Feeling scared and lost, I rolled to the edge of the bed, falling to my knees and praying for guidance in that suffocating darkness. By a show of hands, have you ever been in a place where you felt like you had nowhere to turn? Grandma's recipe stopped working. And I had a decision to make. I could either continue down this destructive path or summons the courage to seek help. Battling this decision, memories of my last day with my grandma came to mind. It was a hot summer day, June 10th to be exact, just 3 days after my 15th birthday. She had just come home from a few days in the hospital, determined to bake bread for someone. And of course, I'm assisting. I watched my grandma struggle for breath in between each knead of dough until she collapsed right there on the dining room floor in front of me. I yelled, "Mommy!" But there was no response. Panicking, I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? The agent asked. My grandma, she can't breathe. So she instructs me to do chest compressions until the ambulance arrives. I'm doing compressions for what feels like an eternity. Tears are rolling down my cheeks, mixing with her sweat as I'm pleading with her to open her eyes. The TV is playing loudly in the background. My baby's crying. The windows are wide open, and I can hear the sirens getting closer. Finally, they arrive and begin to deliver shock treatment to revive her heart. But it was too late. At just 55 years old, she was gone. My grandma gave without boundaries, hid her true feelings, and never asked for help until the very end. I didn't want the same ending for myself. I didn't want my kids to have to tell this story. So I decided to get help, starting with therapy. In therapy, I began to undo years of conditioning to reclaim my power. Toni Morrison wisely said, if you want to fly, you have to give up everything that weighs you down. My grandma's recipe, it definitely helped me survive. But over time, it began to weigh me down, just like it did to her. I was ready to fly, so I decided to let go and seize the opportunity to create a new recipe, one that would change the trajectory of my life. And today, I want to share my BIG, big recipe, for fulfillment on the journey to success with you. The base ingredient is belief. We've all learned that believing in our abilities lays the foundation for success. However, it's as equally important to believe in your worthiness of respect, recognition, and support to foster self-esteem. My grandma's recipe, along with the challenges I faced, crushed my sense of worthiness until I began using my big recipe to affirm myself with words like, my past does not define me. I am enough. These statements fueled my self-love language, empowering me to establish boundaries and advocate for my needs. Developing your self-love language is a critical step towards amplifying your belief in your worthiness without relying on external validation. Then, I added flavor with invest. Yes, investing in professional development is necessary for career growth. However, As a leadership and wellness expert, I can tell you that there's an even greater investment you must prioritize. Burning out on my journey to success pushed me to begin investing in my well-being. Along with therapy, I invested in activities like exercise and meditation, and I used paid time off to invest in joy. My mental health improved. Life felt more meaningful, and to this day, my cup still overflows. Investing in your well-being is not an expense. It's a radical act of self-love that pays dividends. Then, I spiced it up with intent. Being intentional means making decisions with your desired outcomes in sight, and then taking actions that align with that vision. With Grandma's recipe, my intention was to conform, to meet the needs and expectations of others. But using my big recipe, my intention shifted from pleasing others to aligning with my own values and needs. Becoming more intentional requires introspection. Ask yourself questions like, what are my values? Am I living by them? What brings me joy and fulfillment? What behaviors are holding me back from achieving my full potential? Now, before I make any decision, I review my values. And if it doesn't align, I must decline. All right, your turn. Say it with me, hand and all. If it doesn't align, I must decline. Very good. Lastly, the secret sauce that completes my big recipe: gifts. Gifts are natural talents that we're born with, and they usually flow pretty effortlessly. Well, while using Grandma's recipe, my flow was blocked because I relied on my learned skills, education, and the opinions of others to shape my identity and find my purpose. But using my big recipe helped me to reconnect with my authentic self, where I discovered my true purpose and gift for speaking. Ironically, my teachers tried to point my gift out when I was a child. They always said, "Carmen, you talk too much." And they wrote it on every report card. My big recipe, fueled by belief, invest, intent, and gifts, has empowered me and the women I've been entrusted to coach to shift from feeling invisible, unworthy, and inadequate to living and leading with confidence. Before I wrap up, I'm challenging you to examine the recipes that have been passed down to you. Are they serving you? Are they leading you towards the life you envision for yourself? If not, give yourself permission to let that weight go. And try my big recipe. Because we all deserve to soar. Thank you.
Roxbury. Roxbury, put your hands